Bilkent Energy lectures, and today Okan Yardımcı is going to talk about the price regulation in energy markets, and he has actually he's from the Energy Market Regulatory Authority, and he's such a rich and wide background, and he has an engineering degree from the petroleum engineering and the natural gas. He studied law as well as the business administration, finance, and accounting. So, with such a background, we are waiting for the splendid talk. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Hakan Hocam. Actually, I am pleased to see this participants, and I'm a little bit excited to present to this distinguished participants. We will talk about price regulations in energy markets today, and thanks for Energy Policy Research Center for organizing Bilkent's energy lectures. I believe this center will play an important role in the future, so I'm more than happy to contribute for this progress. Thanks for the introduction. Let me start with the interdisciplinary nature of the energy industry. 3 years ago, I asked 2 questions in my blog site about the energy industry. The first question was, what an energy expert needs to know as a market player. And the second one was, what an energy expert needs to know as a policymaker or a regulator. You can work in the market, you can own a distribution company, or work as an engineer or economist in a private company, or you can sit in the other side of the table and work as a regulator or policymaker. And the answers are like this. If you would like to work as a market player, earth science, business administration, engineering, finance plays a little bit more importance. And if you would like to sit on the other side of the table, maybe law, economics, public administration, political science, international relations are much more important. And I draw the efficient learning curve for the energy industry. Try to go this way if you would like to work in the energy industry as far as the poll results. And today we will talk about price regulations in energy markets. It is highly related with finance and economics, and a little bit about law. It will be a very short session, 30-35 minutes maybe, so please do not hesitate to interrupt during the presentation. We may not allocate enough time for the Q&A section, so do not hesitate to ask whenever you want, okay? Let's start with the competition and regulation concepts in modern economic systems. And let's start with, by the way, who studies econ? Oh, I'm a little bit more excited now to give something about energy economics to the econ students. Okay, who was the founder of the classical economics? Adam Smith. And what was the famous book of Smith? The Wealth of Nations. And according to Adam Smith, market can find its own way, right? So there is no need for regulation. Market players can play without any regulation. You shouldn't have any tariff sign, no need for the regulatory authority, no civil servant maybe. So market can find its own way. But it's a big chance there isn't any accident. Because as you know better than me, market can fail by itself, even you regulate very well. So it's a big chance there isn't any accident. But classical economics says, okay, leave it as it is. What was the French word? Laissez-faire, yeah. Okay, let's continue. And it was widely accepted till 1929, till the Great Depression. And after Great Depression, Keynesian approach started to accept it. Okay, what Keynes says, Let's look at that. He said government intervention is necessary. So there should be some rules, okay, in the market, and everything should be, written and regulated. It is very, safe, and it may decrease the risk of the accidents, okay? He said that government intervention is necessary. So here is the regulator who regulates the market. A little bit funny regulator, but regulation is a very boring task, so boring job. So he may try to make it funnier, but he regulates the market and he decreases the risk of the accident. So this is what Keynes. Actually, this is not what Keynes said, but this is how a regulator regulates the market. Okay. Let's continue our historical economical systems, and till 1929 to 1980, Keynesian approach was widely accepted, and in the energy sector, nationalism was very popular at that time. Also, our legal system, laws, affected from this approach. Our petroleum law came into force in 1954, I believe, and our national oil company had some extra rights, some private rights related to the private companies. And it was same in other countries. Not only the Keynesian approach, but also the nationalism affected these kind of issues. But after 1980s, neoliberalism started to accept it, especially in the Europe. I couldn't find any video for that, but I believe you all know one of the founder of that approach. Who is she? Yeah, she was the one of the founders of that idea. And the idea affected energy sector in the Europe and USA differently. In Europe, we started to see unbundling, privatization, liberalization. On the other hand, in the USA, we started to see some deregulations. And what about Turkey? At that time, our prime minister was Turgut Özal, and the first applications in the energy sector was build, operate, transfer. In Turkish, yap, işlet, devret, right? The first applications of the neoliberalism, and it affected energy sector, the generation of the energy sector, and private companies started to take a role in the generation segment of the electricity. But what about this? What about a special approach for the energy industry? There is a big debate if we should treat energy market differently because of its strategic importance. And nowadays, people are talking about this. John Troll, who is a Nobel winner economist, said that, wrote an article about market power and regulation, and he mentioned about sectoral differences. Maybe it's not one fit size. The conditions may change according to the sector. So energy is one of them. Another Nobel winner, Stiglitz, said this kind of approach as American-style socialism. He said that we create big private companies. Unfortunately, consumers cannot benefit because of this liberalism. These are the other ideas, and especially for the energy industry. All right, let's continue with the basic terms. Unbundling of vertical integrated structures. It's something like this: production in the electricity sector, generation, transmission, distribution, storage, wholesale, retail. Our laws, electricity and natural gas laws, says all these segments should be unbundled. All right? And there are three phases for the unbundling. The first one is account unbundling. The second one is physical unbundling. And the third one is legal unbundling. Let's talk about Botaş case, our giant natural gas company. In 2001, our laws came into force and said that we should unbundle BOTAŞ, okay? The transmission system operator will be still state-owned company, but distribution should be privatized and wholesale share should be decreased to 20%, okay? So account unbundling of BOTAŞ had been completed. Physical unbundling, yes. I mean, the transmission headquarters is different than the BOTAŞ general manager's building. We are between physical unbundling and legal unbundling. Legal unbundling means there should be separate companies, okay? What about horizontal integration? Our laws also does not allow for the horizontal integration. So it limits the BOTAŞ share in the wholesale market as an example, and it says not more than 20% in the wholesale segment. What's the aim? The aim is creating a competition in the wholesale segment. All right, we will talk about that. But another basic term, natural monopoly. Here is an example of a natural monopoly, a railroad service. The other examples in the energy sector are transmission in the electricity or in the natural gas, and distribution, again in the electricity and in the natural gas. What does natural monopoly means? It means that average total cost and marginal cost is always decreasing in that activity, which means there should be only one company that operates in that segment. It's not feasible to operate for the other company, okay? It's not feasible to construct another railroad, or it's not, you know the transmissions, they are big pipelines, and for the transmission of electricity, you can see in Gölbaşı, very big lines. So natural monopoly says, okay, it's a natural monopoly activity, so it's not feasible to construct another big lines as a transmission of electricity or transmission of natural gas. So this is the idea of the natural monopoly, and we should regulate the prices in the natural monopoly activity, and it's a very difficult task because we will expect these companies to operate as they are operating in a competitive environment, and we will talk about how we regulate the prices today. Another term, competition within the field or competition for the field. For the natural monopoly segments, we use competition for the field, and we used bidding system. Companies are paying money in order to get the congestion of the distribution company. Let's think about Ankara. Its name was Ego, now it's Başkent Gaz, and the company want to, during the bidding system, gave money, offered, as far as I remember, for Başkent Elektrik. It was sold for $1.2 billion, something like that, to a private company. So it is a kind of competition for the field. We cannot create a competition within the field because the distribution company is a natural monopoly company within its region. So we cannot create a competition in that specific region. But we should be very careful about problem of forecastable rents and problem of windfalls in these cases, okay? We will talk about that later. And last but not least, social welfare. Our aim is trying to increase the social welfare, total surplus, consumer surplus, producer surplus. You all know better than me. So let's continue with the case study. BOTAŞ before the market law. State-owned company BOTAŞ was the monopoly on import, wholesale, transmission, distribution, storage, sale. Plus, it was determining the wholesale prices, retail prices, and connection fees. Everything was done by state-owned giant company BOTAŞ. And this is the picture of the market after the law. So we split the segments, and the purple ones are the natural monopoly ones, not the storage one, but there isn't enough storage for natural gas, so we also regulate the prices for the storage activities. But transmission system operator and distribution are the natural monopoly segments, so we should regulate these companies' prices. What about wholesale? There should be lots of companies, and Market should find its own way. There should be the fair prices within that competition. Here are the segments. Now the pink ones are regulated: transmission, storage, distribution. Connection to non-eligible customers are regulated tariffs. The others determined by the parties. All right. And this is the picture for the distribution sector. Before law, it is only in 7. We only had 7 distribution companies, and after law, natural gas usage widened to whole country, and now we have 69 distribution companies, and 68 of them are private. Only one of them is state-owned, İGDAŞ. And as I said, they are natural monopoly companies in their specified regions. Okay, so they can set their prices by themselves if we don't regulate, and it, as you may accept, it may be very high. So the picture is like this. If there is a competition, regulatory authority is very comfortable. We don't care about it, but it's very difficult to create a competitive environment. So you don't need to regulate the prices if there is a competition. But if there isn't any competition or natural monopoly activity in the energy sector, don't forget it's transmission, distribution in the electricity, and also in the natural gas. And also for the oil sector, refinery is now monopoly. I mean, we have only one company right now, but we will have some more in the future. So if there isn't any competition or natural monopoly, we should regulate the prices. You know this famous supply and demand curve. In the competitive environment, consumers can gain something and producers can gain something. We are all in this line of the demand curve. Let's think about a coffee. Bill Gates can pay, or let's talk about Turkish guys. Ali Ağaoğlu can pay, let's say 100 Turkish liras for coffee, but I can pay just 5 Turkish liras maybe. So I'm here, but Ali Ağaoğlu is here. But because of the competitive market, coffee is around 3 Turkish liras or 4, I don't know. Anyway, so because of the competitive price, all the consumers at this level gain the area of A. So this is the consumer surplus, as you know better than me. What about producer side? Of course, some producers gain from the competitive environment, and this is the total surplus. B is the producer surplus, so this is the total one. What about unregulated monopoly? If the monopoly is unregulated, of course, he tries to increase its price, right? And this means the decreasing of the quantity, and we encounter with the deadweight loss, in Turkish dara kaybı. So we don't want to see deadweight loss in our regulations. This is another picture for the unregulated monopoly. You can see the average cost and marginal cost are decreasing, and this is the consumer surplus, this is the producer surplus in this case. If you regulate monopoly at the marginal cost, this is the consumer surplus. But in this case, producers can lose this area. So this maximizes social welfare and maximizes consumer surplus. On the other hand, does not ensure financial viability of the regulated company. So it's a very difficult task to set the price for the regulated monopoly. What about the other alternative? To set the prices for the average cost of the regulated company. And in this case, this is the consumer surplus. Producer surplus is 0, since we regulate at the average cost of the regulated company. But this is the accounting solution. All right, we talked about efficiency. We can talk about 3 kinds of efficiency. The first one is productive efficiency. It means that less input, more output. And we expect from the regulated companies in their OPEX or CAPEX to see less input and more output. This is the productive efficiency. What about allocator efficiency? Kaynak tahsisi in Turkish. We expect to share the gain, benefit between the companies and consumers effectively. So this is the allocator efficiency. And what about the last one, dynamic efficiency? This is the efficiency during time. We shouldn't only focus on today's picture, we should also consider the future's benefit. So we should expect our companies should use the technology, the new technology, also should invest for the R&D expenditures. So we should also look for the dynamic efficiency. And the optimum efficiency is the Pareto efficiency. No one can be made better off without making another worse off. What about service quality? Okay, let me ask you a question. Because service quality is also an important issue during our price regulation. Alternative one, your electricity bill will be 100 Turkish liras per month in a good service quality, but you have another alternative. Your electricity bill will be 50 Turkish liras per month, but 5 hours per week power cut, 2 hours waiting in the line in order to pay the bill every month. Which one is your alternative? Alternative 1 or alternative 2? Do you want good service but higher bills, or do you want to, okay, it's a good money, I mean, paying half of the price for the electricity, and I can, you know, wait without any electricity during 5 hours per week, and 2 hours, I can wait for 2 hours in order to pay my bill. Which one is, who says alternative 1? Wow. Who says alternative 2?
I think the opportunity cost of waiting 5 hours, 2 hours in the line is important, or the 5 hours on the power cut.
That's great, yeah, great. And that's why regulating the service quality is very difficult, because it depends on the consumer. It depends on the consumer. The alternative costs also may change according to the consumers, and some consumers can expect VIP services. You can say, even I don't want to wait in the line, or, you know, I want to see the company's manager when I'm paying my bill. Okay, if you pay 1,000 Turkish liras per month, you can see the company manager. This kind of VIP services can be also asked from the consumers. So that's why it's very difficult to regulate the service quality. But we regulate the average service quality to the whole society, and some VIP services can be priced differently. But in our regulations, when we are looking for efficiency, we should care about the service quality. Okay, service quality of the companies are also very important. Let's talk a little bit deeper about the tariff setting. It is very basic formula. It has very basic formula. For a company, we first calculate the revenue requirement and we divide it to consumption, and this is the tariff. But it's not very easy to calculate the revenue requirement of the company. We look at their investments, capex, and we calculate its regulatory asset base according to their investments. And we multiply regulatory asset base with the fair rate of return. And in Turkey, we are using weighted average cost of capital, and plus depreciation plus operational expenditures of the company creates the revenue requirement. And there are some alternatives in order to calculate the revenue requirement. Cost plus regulation or incentive regulation. In Turkey, we are using incentive regulation, and there's some alternatives of the incentive regulation: price cap regulation, revenue cap regulation, and yardstick competition. And in some segments of our electricity or natural gas, we are using revenue cap. In others, we are using price cap regulation. Just know or familiar with the methods, and if you are interested, please search more for them. And as I said, we calculate regulatory asset base, and we forecast the consumption in that area. Okay, and we calculate fair, reasonable rate of return. And as I said, it is a very difficult task to calculate the fair rate of return. According to company, their rate of return is very high, but according to consumer, it should be low. So it is very difficult for a regulatory authority to set the fair return for a company. And tariff design means who pays that revenue, okay? Big consumers or small ones. So we also design the tariff. This is another figure for our natural gas transmission revenue cap calculation. This is OPEX, and we apply efficiency for the company's operational expenditures. Companies are investing for pipelines or electricity lines, and we depreciate their investments. In electricity, it is 10 years. In natural gas, it is 22 years. The depreciation period is 22 years in natural gas, and it is 10 years in electricity market in Turkey. And we calculate average regulatory asset base of the company, and we apply weighted average cost of capital, fair rate of return, to regulatory asset base, and we calculate the return for the company. So OPEX plus depreciation plus return makes the revenue requirement. We are not applying quality factor right now, but as I said, quality is very important. Efficiency is nothing by itself. We should also consider quality, and then it is tariff in your bills, okay? And it's updated by inflation. There's some correction mechanisms. This is how tariff system working in Turkey. But let's talk about the fair rate of return, which was the very difficult task. An investor can invest by debt or by its own equity, right? And risk of debt and risk of shareholders' equity are different. So for fair rate of return, we should calculate the risk of debt and risk of equity. Debt part is a little bit easier. We just add risk-free rate. We are using treasury bonds plus spread, which is the debt risk premium. So on the other hand, the other side is a little bit more complex, and we are using CAPM for calculation of the risk of shareholders' equity. And this is the CAPM formula, capital asset pricing model is the CAPM. So it is highly debatable. I mean, from this side, how many cubes are these in this picture? 3 or 4? 3? 4? Who says 3?
Sometimes 3.
Yeah. So it's like that. Calculating the fair rate of return is like that. From company side, we are looking at the same formulas, same financial theories, same economics, but from company side, fair rate of return is, let's say, 25% per year. But from the regulator side, it is 12% plus inflation. So generally, a board of the regulatory authority decide between them. So it works like that. And let's talk about another example in order to understand the fair rate of return better, and in order to understand the relation between risk and gain. You have 10 million Turkish liras. Okay, please consider this alternative and answer which one is your alternative. It's a very good to dream that you have 10 million Turkish liras, and you have 12 alternatives, okay? The first alternative is putting 10 million Turkish liras under your pillow. It's my grandma is doing. Unfortunately not for 10 million Turkish liras, but for small amount of money. That's why I'm still giving lectures. But you know, at that time, 10 million Turkish liras remain safe, right? Because of the time value of money. The second alternative, you can lend your money to the government, and interest rate is 11%. It's a good rate, and theoretically there isn't any risk in this case, because government cannot go to bankruptcy, okay, in theory. And the third one, lend your money to the bank, and interest rate is 13%. You know, the risk is increasing, That's why the return should increase. People are not giving money to the government and give to the banks because the interest rate is more than the treasury bonds, okay? And the fourth one, you can buy 10 houses. It's a nice alternative also. You know, the rent fees are around 3,000 Turkish liras per month per house. If you buy one house for 1 million Turkish liras. The fifth alternative, own a distribution company, which is regulated by a regulatory authority. It may be a natural gas distribution company or electricity distribution company, but it is regulated. There is a competitive environment, and return is regulated by Energy Market Regulatory Authority in Turkey. So let's say license fee is 5 million Turkish liras, weighted average cost of capital is 13%, and this is real. I mean, you should add inflation on it, and this is before tax, and we are applying price cap method. Okay, this is your fifth alternative. Let's continue. Operate a pump station. Initial investment is 8 million Turkish liras. Margin of the last year may change. You know, it depends where it is. If it is just in front of the Bilkent, was it Shell? Yeah, maybe this profit can be more than this, but there is a risk because there is a competitive environment. The seventh one, invest in stock exchange, and last year's gain, it is fluctuating, okay? So there is risk, but there may be a possibility to a higher return. So, eighth one, operate a wholesale company. Now you will operate in a competitive environment, and your return is not regulated by an authority. You are under the risk, but license fees are lower, and margin depends on your effort. Construct a hotel. If it goes well, IRR can be 35%, but if it is not, you know, you can go to bankruptcy if your hotel is not working well. Construct a hotel, so the 10th one, drill a production well. Drilling cost is around $1 million. Success ratio is 1/2. Expected production, if succeed, 20 barrels per day. But more risky, drill an exploration well. License fee 1 million Turkish liras, drilling cost is, but success, because in an exploration well you don't have enough information about the field, so this is more riskier, but if you succeed, you will return with 100 barrels per day. The last one, gambling, okay? The high risk, one shot, you play in the casino, you can go to bankruptcy, or you can double your money in 2 minutes. So there are lots of alternatives for an investor. By the way, which one is your alternative? Who would like to go with the first one? Put it under your pillow. Nobody, only my grandma. Good. Who wants to give money to the government? Nobody. Ah, you. Great. Lend your money to the bank. Good. Okan hocam. 5 more. Great. Buy 10 houses. A little bit more riskier, but you would like to see students in your houses, okay? Good. Good money, easy money. Own a distribution company. A regulated one. You. So you would like our return. Weighted average cost of capital, and you decide to invest in that area. So this return rate is very important, because think about the whole society, all investors. They should choose, if they believe that this ratio is good according to the other investment alternatives, they invest to your sector. So we find someone that's good to believe our return rate is good enough to invest for a distribution company. Okay, who wants to operate a pump station? Good. Invest in stock exchange. Great. Operate a wholesale company. 2 more. Construct a hotel. Nobody. There are lots of hotels, right? And if there is any problem, international problem, such as Turkey, Russia, or any other issues, there may be some problems in your business. Drill a production well. You want to go to the petroleum business, good. Drill and exploration well, more risky. You. What about gambling? Wow. 3. Great. So the investors decide according to the risks and returns, and if they, as I said, if they believe our rate of return is good enough to invest for the distribution sector or transmission sector, maybe a refinery also in an energy market, they invest to that sector. As you can see, increasing risk may be the increasing of return. So let's put all these alternatives on risk and return graph. This is the efficient frontier. So in this picture, we should go to this way. Okay, we should decrease our risk and we should increase our return. So I put all these alternatives here. The first one, put it under your pillow. You know, there isn't any risk, but the return is minus because time value of money. What about the second one? As I say, theoretically, lending money to the government has zero risk, and this is very important parameter in order to calculate capital asset pricing model. So the risk of equity. So there is a lower risk, lower return, and there isn't any risk to lend your money to the government. The third one, a little bit more risky, lending money to the bank. Have you ever heard imarzedeler? You know, there's a kind of risk that you can face to if you are giving your money to the bank. But return should be a little bit more than lending your money to the government. Buy 10 houses, own a distribution company is around here, operate a pump station, invest in stock exchange, operate a wholesale company, construct a hotel, drill a production well, drill an exploration well, and gambling. You know, all these are alternatives. Of course, there are lots of alternatives in the real life, and this is the market return. This is also very important for CAPM, but I will not go into the details of CAPM, but we use the risk-free rate, which is number 2, and market return, and calculate the possible, the return for the regulated companies. These are the risk-free rates in Turkey, 10-year treasury bonds from 2010 to 2016. As you can see, it's fluctuating, and it's around 10% during time. And this is the weighted average cost of capital for the Turkish regulated energy markets. As you can see, it is in the increasing trend. Please consider these values as without inflation. So you should also add the inflation on it. And this is the complex version of the weighted average cost of capital. We use counter risk premium. Rating of Turkey is important at that time in order to calculate the counter risk. Market risk premium, beta, we don't talk about the details, but corporate test, debt risk premium, risk-free rate, and we calculate cost of debt, cost of equity, and weighted average cost of capital is calculated with these parameters. This is the main principles of tariff structure. NPV of investment should be equal to NPV of amortization plus return, and IRR of amortization plus return should be equal to weighted average cost of capital. This is the main principle of our tariff structure. There are some other principles, transparency in the methodology so that all employed criteria and procedures are made public. Stability in the adopted methodology so that the concerned agents have the least possibly regulatory uncertainty. Simplicity in the methodology and its implementation as far as possible. Non-discrimination among equal parties. Cost-reflective prices should be applied. Costs not directly related to market operations should not be included. Cross-subsidies should not be allowed. These are the main principles of tariff structure in the energy markets. So I think we use our time effectively, just 40 minutes. So thank you very much.